Coming up next on the Santita Jackson Show is our Say What segment.
Welcome back to another edition of the Santita Jackson Show. We have got a lot to talk about with you today. But the first topic is about forgiveness. Are black people the most forgiving people on earth? When you mess up, do you come to black people to make up, and then can you move on? Or is that a fallacy? Let's talk about it with attorney Linda Bernard, one of my dear friends, brilliant civil rights attorney. She also practices divorce law. Maybe we should talk about that here. That's another topic, right? She's won several cases before the Michigan State Supreme Court. I had to say it. Deanna Solomon, who's also a first lady of a church, but we'll leave that for another day. Yeah, we're so happy. But she's a political consultant, and you have the Rose Trinity Consulting Firm. And my colleague from Fox News, indeed, she's a Fox political analyst, but she's a best-selling author. You've got to get the book Bamboozled. You might get bamboozled if you read it, but that's all right. That's all right. And a former Miss UDC. I mean, no, Miss DC. That's
DC
right. That's
USA.
right. That's right. That's right.
Back in the day.
Well, no, 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
Come on.
I'll take that.
Come on.
I'll
Come on.
take
Come on.
that.
Help me out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now you practice law.
Yes,
and
I do.
you have seen some of everything. You've seen civil rights law. You've seen family law. You've seen it all. Do you think blacks are the most forgiving people?
Yes, I do, but I don't think, I think that forgiveness is a corollary to the fact that we have a deep understanding of people and relationships and things because of our history, because so much has happened to us. We understand the nuances of life, which, and I was always taught by my father, I'm sure as you were as well, that if you must err on the side of compassion. And I think that African Americans take that to heart. We don't build bombs, we don't make guns. We're not about destructive practices or things. I mean, we're about love and peace, and we do forgive because we're deeply, deeply Christian. We don't just say the word, we really are. And the Bible tells everyone to forgive. And if you don't forgive, then you sort of carry that burden around and you just are absorbed by that, animus.
And you can't be forgiven if
right.
you don't forgive.
Oh, that's right. That's
Okay.
right as well.
Well,
We're deeply
Deanna,
Christian.
well, deeply Christian, okay. Okay. Well, tell me, what do you think? Do you think we're the most forgiving people? I mean, I've heard this from whites as well as blacks.
I do. I have to agree with Attorney Linda that we, having personally been raised in the church, that while we may not specifically speak of forgiveness, our actions show us the way. I can think back to a time with my grandparents and being a little child walking home from elementary school. No matter what had happened in school and with teasing and taunting, my grandparents always said, you should speak, you should greet. Your behavior should reflect one of forgiveness.
Say, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Exactly.
That just came to me.
Exactly.
And
I mean,
too, when you see stars that fall from grace, or when you see politicians that fall from grace. I can give you an example. When Bill Clinton was going through impeachment, we all saw in the world a picture of him being counseled by your father. When Michael Jackson was in trouble, he went to Sheila Jackson Lee, Congresswoman from Texas, with the Black Caucus, to do a press conference. Prince, the same thing, but even Don Imus, when he made the mistake of making the statements that he did dealing with the Rutgers basketball team, he went on black radio. So I think also we are seen as forgiving people from our history,
Yes.
from our belief, but leaders, when they're in trouble, they go to black clergy. They go to black leaders.
Well, why do you think that? I mean, what is it? Do you think it's the slavery experience? I mean, what is it about us?
We are historically, from the slave experience, a forgiving people. From the civil rights experience, back with Emmett Till, the slain civil rights leaders, we still assimilated with people who were not black to actually make the civil rights movement happen.
Well, let me say this, because, my brother has been going through a very, very difficult time over the past, really, it's almost been a year. And what struck me about my brother, former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr.'s troubles, and of course, he doesn't bear those troubles alone, it's the whole family.
Yes.
People have come to us and they have said to me, and it could make me cry, we're praying for you. We're praying for you. And I promise you, I think those prayers and the compassion that we've received from people, it's all been so sustaining. I mean, it's helped to save our lives. And I was talking with my mother, my father, my brothers, my sister, even my brother about it. I said, I don't think you even understand how these prayers have kept you alive and kept you moving forward.
But your family has helped people. Your family's prayed for people. So what you guys have put out there, you reap what you sow, it's coming back to you twofold.
But I think
We're
we
all
do
praying
that
for
with
him.
we do that. I mean, not to make it about me.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just saying, I think this is what we do.
It
And,
is.
I mean, how
It
can
is.
we increase the peace? Because I'm watching us also kill each other. Now, black on black crime, I have a problem with that label.
Yeah.
Because most violence, most crime in America, it's intraracial.
Correct.
But when we are looking at these bombs exploding in our communities, what's going on? I mean, are we a forgiving people, or are we an excusing people? Because we hurt each other. We don't hurt people who hurt us.
It's not
I'm not
only,
advocating.
it's-
I'm not
it's-
having a revenge fantasy.
It's not
No.
only from the standpoint of black on black crime, though you don't like that term, but even in corporate America, I have found when we are in position where we can expand and reach out to others, we don't. And as I worked in corporate America, I worked hard to break that type of cycle happening in corporate America. But I think we are unforgiving when it comes to us.
I think
But
we
what
are
do you
a
think? But what do you
forgiving.
think that's about? Why?
I think we
why are
are
we
a
hard on
forgiving
each
people,
other?
and we are an excusing people. We're both.
We are.
But our forgiveness, as I said, comes, I think, from our Christianity and from our fundamental sense of fairness. There isn't a white person in America that would want a jury that doesn't have black people on it, because even in Washington, when the guy that was in the basement of the White House under Reagan and he was shredding everything, I've forgotten his
Scooter
name.
Libby?
No, that
no,
was
for
that
sure.
was.
I'm thinking.
Anyway,
I'm going all the way back.
When he
Hey.
was tried in the district, he was found guilty of misdemeanors only, although he had done all of this destruction of documents. He was a general. He was a former general in the White House working for Reagan. And I remember his statements that he was very happy. I think the jury in D.C. had about 4 or 5 blacks on it, and he knew that would be his saving grace. And we convicted him of misdemeanors.
Now, as someone who impanels juries, why would you want a black person on the jury?
For that reason, because we just have an understanding of life, people, circumstances, and we are forgiving. And on the other hand, your other question was, do we make excuses? Yes, we do. But it's all part of that interplay in life. It's all part of that push-pull.
It has so many. You want to jump
And
in
even
here.
in our, like I said, it goes back to our upbringing, and you touched upon what goes around comes around. That's been embedded in many of us coming up as children, so that our actions need to demonstrate something that we want to see on the return.
What goes around comes around. Now that's the funny thing, because we are good for that. You got to be very careful.
Yes, you do.
know, I mean, my father said you can't be big and little at the same time. Choose to stay
can't.
whom ye will serve, right? Like, wait a minute, and you never know when. It's a funny thing. What you accuse people of,
Yes.
or what you condemn people for, God will make you that. If you can, as my parents would always say, keep on living. Just keep on living.
That's
You're going to
correct.
see some
That's correct.
things.
That's
What is
correct.
it? It's not what goes into the mouth that defileth a man, but what comes out.
Ouch. So I mean, but in this hyper-partisan climate, I mean, and we're engaged in the political back and forth. Angela and I do this all the time.
Yes.
But what strikes people about watching us is that we don't personalize it,
No, because it's about the facts. And then, too, as a people.
and I always win.
Well, of course she does, because she's a winner.
Right,
Yes,
right,
yes,
right. No,
yes.
it's only because this is the
But
same
because,
thing.
because I let her win.
There you go.
Anyway.
Oh, okay. Right.
But no, but the thing is, too, we all want to get to the same place. We might get there differently, but we all want to get to the same place. And it bothers me dealing with the black on black crime, or the fact, too, that we block our own people, getting back again to corporate America. Why can't we come together as a people? Why can't we overcome?
Well, I mean, what?
Well, the people that are selected to lead things in corporate America are already what I would refer to as handkerchief head in most times.
Ouch.
I mean,
what do you mean by that?
Yes.
That
Please
means
expand.
that they are
I got what you're
not.
saying.
They won't get in that position if they're really pushing. If they're really about the right thing, they're there. I mean, they have great benefits. They have great salaries. They have great accolades from the community
They have
and so
something
forth.
to protect.
Right.
But something happens to them. The power, the higher up they
Absolute
go,
power
they
corrupts
become more and more
absolutely.
neutral, more and more homogeneous. more or less
Assimilated.
assimilated.
yeah,
And this is what we
absolutely.
have to do. You know, absolute power corrupts absolutely, but what you're given are blessings that you should give to others. And so when I was one of those people in charge, I made sure we put programs together in corporate America. My father always taught me, brighten the corner where you are. You can't
Right.
solve all the ills of the world, but brighten the corner where you are.
Absolutely.
And the only way that we can change the handkerchief heads, I like that, handkerchief heads.
Oh, please don't
It's-
use that
it's
on
going
another
against-
television show.
going against corporate America and bringing our people in and not be afraid. You have white males in corporate America everywhere. Why can't we have more black women and black men?
But is it about the skin or the perspective?
Both.
Because
Both.
definitely
But
both.
it was what
It's
was most
definitely.
distressing to me the other day was when the president walked in for the State of the Union address, and all the cabinet people that came in, about 17 of them, I think, they all came in, and only one was African American. They were all white males. I was like, I was like apoplectic at
Yes.
that point. I was so
Yes.
upset about
Yes.
that. And it goes right back to what you're saying. The only people who know and know how to do things, the only people who have power, to have the resources, those enormous budgets that various departments have, of course, are white males. Now that's not a bad thing, maybe per se, but it shows that we have not even come close to that ceiling that you're talking about.
Well, when we get in these positions, whatever it is, if it's in our home, if it's in the streets, the suites, how do we courageously take the best of our experience forward? You know, because many of us, it's something that happens when we get in these lovely seats. Boy, it's like we lose our minds and we become unforgiving. You know, the breaks that we got,
Oh, yeah.
we don't pass on.
Oh, yeah.
How do we do
Detroit
it?
is such a hotbed for thriving and entrepreneurs and leaders. And while I do know what Linda's speaking about and have worked in corporate America, I have seen over the years black men and women really step up to the plate and bring people along with them.
But do they do that in Detroit? Because this is a black community, it's safer, it's expected. How can we do that in another community where you might get more pushback? I mean, because for me, I've seen you in the
saying
Lions
like
Den.
Missoula, Montana.
No, I mean, just, Chicago, in
Okay.
any environment, because, many of us are afraid to do the right thing for the right reasons.
Mine is my faith. I was asked one time by a very powerful man, are you committed to here? Or are you committed to there? And I said, I'm committed to God. And I said, I'm going to work hard for the company. I'm going to do my job. But the bottom line is this. When I go home to see him, I have to answer. And the talents that he's given us, if we're selfish and we keep them to ourselves, they will be taken away.
Well, let's think about that, everybody. I mean, the fact is, we are a very forgiving people. But we don't want to be an excusing people. Lean not to thine own understanding or to your excuses either. Let us grow together. Let's take these painful experiences so that we can become a better people. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
Being your best self.
Oh boy, you never know what to expect on the Santita Jackson Show. Let us talk about being your best self. When you date, I heard a long time ago that your relationships are only as healthy as you are. Now here I thought I was this fabulous flower. Attorney Linda Bernard, civil rights lawyer, but you're also a divorce lawyer.
That's correct.
And Deanna Solomon, you're a first lady and a newlywed,
Yes.
right? And you are a political consultant. And you are a Sadie married lady yourself, Angela McGlowan,
And
my
no longer
colleague
a
from Fox
newlywed.
News.
No longer a newlywed. either.
Oh my goodness. Well, tell me, with whom shall I begin? Well, we're the single ladies here. Do you believe in this old adage? I mean, well, okay, I'm going to start with Linda since you all have already got this locked down. Well, I mean, do you think that your relationships are only as healthy as you are? Or is that just talk?
I think that's true. But I also think that
So you and I are both nuts, is that it?
Right. But unfortunately, in America in particular, if you're single, if you've never been married and you're over 25, then people look at you like there's something wrong with you.
Well, fortunately, that doesn't apply to me.
Yeah, right.
So what?
So I got you. But on the real side, I just tell people I'm
What do you mean on the real side? What? Okay.
I tell people I'm successfully single. I've never had a failed marriage. And most people who say to you, "Oh, you've never been married? You've never been married?" Most of them have been divorced. So I make the point that I've never failed at marriage. I mean, because they're second marriage, third marriage, whatever it is. So I'm successfully single, as are you.
Thank you, Cha-Cha. Okay, Angela, what do you have to? I have to skip
like
over you, Gianna, because Angela's about to jump across the table.
Well, I like what you said about she's never failed at marriage, because when you get a divorce, you both failed at marriage. And I think the challenge is, yes, be a healthier self, but also seek someone who is equally yoked with you. And go to couples counseling. Go to Christian counseling so you can find out the job of the man in the marriage, the job of the woman in the marriage, but also with Jesus Christ. Because the three of you are supposed to be together and it's supposed to be a rope. Also, marriage is not a destination, it's a journey. And you truly have to be partners, because marriage is not easy.
No,
it
it's not.
isn't.
So,
And-
okay, why do you say it's not easy?
well, because you are bonding with another person, and especially in my case, I married someone that already had children that had been married before, so it's a blended family. So you have to be able to, you know, get along with the ex who's the mother of the children. There's just a lot of things, a lot of challenges that you have to go through. But if you have God there, and if you are equally yoked, and if the man understands Jesus Christ, you have a chance.
Deanna?
Whoa.
Because see, you also counsel people now as the First Lady. So, I mean,
I do my best. I do my
Okay.
best. I do. I will say this. I know and believe that God is love, and for me, love is God. I caught my husband's attention when he asked me to speak at an event, and I spoke about the love I saw in him. And my definition of love is commitment, caring, and courage. And I said, for me, you know, I saw his commitment to the community, how much he cared about the people he served, and the courage he took to, you know, vocally take a stand on a lot of different things that were going on
well, now,
at the time.
was he someone you admired then? I mean, did you think maybe, or you
I-
just admired him, you just
I
respected
did.
him?
I was admiring him from afar, but I didn't see that as a fit for me. I didn't.
Why not?
You know, initially I just thought it was too much.
Well, you know, because my mother is married to someone who's married to
Yes.
ministry.
Yes.
Right.
And so, you know, but she's never been funny about the fact that she has to share him with the world. She says,
Yes.
the piece of him that belongs to me is mine. The world, he belongs to everybody else.
And they're true partners too, and they're
Yeah.
equally yoked. And I want the ladies to know too, you can take your time. I did not get married, you talked about after 21 or 25. I did not get married until I was 35, and it was my third engagement.
Okay.
So take your time to make sure that this is the person that you want to be with, but
Now-
yet and still.
No, wait.
What?
It was your third engagement.
Yes, it was.
So now, why him and not the other two?
Well, the first one I was 19 and I didn't even know who I was. And this
But
is
how did
going
you
to-
make? I mean, because everybody, you're from the deep south,
I'm from
okay?
the deep
and we
South.
love the whole wedding thing. How did you turn your back on all of that?
I knew in my gut he was not for me. I knew. You'll know. You use that discernment. Sometimes we don't want to listen to that gut feel.
Good for
and
you.
every time I didn't, it was a mistake. The second gentleman, unfortunately, God took him home. He passed away while we were engaged. And through that, it was pretty traumatizing. I mean, even now my voice shakes because that was the first real true love, the second one. And then the third one came along. We met on a blind date. First blind date I'd ever been on. There you go. And wasn't expecting it, wasn't looking for it, and it fell in my lap.
Closing thoughts from you.
But see, so many people today, we are talking about certainly traditional marriage, and that's something that I agree with. But so many people today have just long-term relationships where they cohabit together, they share expenses, they share real estate, they share everything. So I'm not sure that there isn't a new paradigm, if you will, for relationships. Certainly there's marriage, which is actually governed by 187 laws in the U.S. and the most protected classification there is. But then there are alternative relationships now between men and women, and of course people of the same sex as well.
Well, just very quickly, why? I never knew that 187 laws. Why do you think the marriage institution is so protected? Just, I only have a few seconds before my producer chokes me. Sylvia, be quiet right now.
Because of the Judeo-Christian ethic in the United States. I mean, obviously, if you're a Muslim, you can have multiple wives. I wish you ought to be able to have multiple husbands as well. But in any
Linda.
event, but that aside, I mean, and because we're a Christian country, That is really why. And now there's this whole legal infrastructure that's built around a marriage. I mean, that's why it's so important once you get married that you know about these things, and why we now have prenups and a number of other
Yes.
things, because your property becomes someone else's property.
Exactly.
I mean, you're subject to all sorts of disclosure.
You know
you're
what?
legally their next of kin. You
Yes.
make their life and
Absolutely.
death
They have
decisions.
custody of your, you know what? We're going to have to do this again, because we need to really talk about what marriage is about when we come back on the Santita Jack, when you ladies come back here. Because when you talk about same-sex marriage and changing marriage, and I hear that it's 187 laws that govern marriage in the United States of America, which I did not know, Linda. There's a whole lot to this marriage thing. But the first thing you need to know is that you need to be your best self so that you can get your best self, because you will be equally yoked. Now, are you going to be equally yoked with your lesser angel or your better one? More of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. And reach out to me on Facebook on the Santita Jackson Show. No, on the Santita Jackson fan page. There you go. Back in a minute.
Next, Santita explains her personal journey in a segment we call Wait a Minute.
Wait a minute. You know, when we debuted a few weeks back, I talked about my weight loss journey. And I want you to call the number on the screen right now so that I can talk about yours. I lost about 200 pounds because I had weight loss surgery about 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago now. And it's been a really, really tough journey. A lot of highs, a lot of lows. I've learned a lot about myself. But what's been so fascinating and so heartening to me is learning about your journey. You've reached out to me on the Santita Jackson fan page on Facebook, and I've heard so much about you. And so I want to hear your stories, and I want to highlight your stories. I want to talk with you. I want to talk about you. Because weight, well, there's so many components to it. Not just physical, but emotional and spiritual. You want to know how to eat to lose the weight. You want to know so many things from me, and I want to share them here. So let's talk. Reach out to me. Call me on the number on your screen, but also go to the Santita Jackson fan page. And let's talk about lifting the weight off of our shoulders so that we can climb together. We'll be back in a moment.
Here's Santita's Up Close with a one-on-one interview.
Welcome back. We're going to go up close with Bishop Allison Abrams. This is a woman for whom I have tremendous admiration. Her life's journey, her testimony, if you will, is filled with everything that we've all dealt with on some level. She's got her doctorate. She's dealt with domestic abuse. She's dealt with divorce. She's also seen deliverance. Welcome back to the show, Bishop Abrams. Yeah.
Thank you so much,
cha-cha.
Santita Jackson. Glad to be here.
I mean, I'm glad to have you here, particularly to talk about your life's journey, because there are so few women in the pulpit. I mean, we
Yes.
support the churches. I mean,
Yes.
heaven knows I do, and I love it. Why do you think it's so hard for us to assume these pulpits? What's going on?
We deal with a lot of traditionalism, and in my opinion, I want to call it people who are unlearned in regards to the word and the truth of the word. And so women are still fighting that battle. They're still struggling. I like to say, not without a struggle, that I got to where I am today.
So what made you go into the ministry? Did you always know that you wanted to go into the ministry? Because I know a lot of women who go into law
Right.
as opposed to the ministry because, you know, they just say, well, I'm not worthy, or I don't know if there'll be a place for me.
Well, believe it or not, I did go to law school first, and I left law school to preach. And my dean of the law school told me, I can't believe you are leaving law school to talk about going to preach. You're not going to make no money. And I said, well, I got to do what God says to do. And so
How did your family feel?
Well, my family felt, you know, if this is what you believe God said for you to do, then you need to do that. My family's been very supportive of my ministry. I've just been blessed in that avenue because everybody doesn't have that. But I knew that God spoke to me as a child. At the age of 8, my mother was a speaker in the Baptist church because they wouldn't allow women to be called preachers. And so I grew up watching my mother speak, and her best friend, my godmother, I watched her speak. So I always saw women speaking in the church. And then I went to a church where there was a woman actually who had finished seminary, and she was on the pulpit. And so that was 6th Avenue Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. And so for me, my world wasn't that women were not allowed to preach and lead in ministry. So I was blessed to grow up in that vein and see women leading, preaching, teaching, and assisting the pulpit all the time. And so at the age of 8, when God told me that I would do that, I said, no, I don't want to do that. I just outright told the Lord, no, I ain't trying to do that, and don't want to be no preacher.
As you speak to people, because I want you to come back so that we can talk more about this, with your personal challenges, with domestic abuse, with divorce. I mean, you are about to have 3 children in college in a short while. Can you give a word to women who are watching us today? I mean, because women deal with so many challenges and we think we can never get out from under, particularly now in these tough economic times. How have you made it? What will you say to them?
Well, Santita, one of the things I had to say to myself, first of all, we have to encourage ourselves like David did. One of the things I had to say to myself was, I'm not going to allow my circumstance to stop me from going to the next level and being from who God said I can be. And so domestic abuse was very difficult for me. It took me many years to heal. Many years to heal. I mean, and sometimes you'll think that you're healed and you're not healed. Something will happen that'll let you know that you're not healed from that.
The break or the bruise is a lot deeper.
It's very deep, very deep. Domestic violence is very deep. A lot of women experience that, but you have to first make up in your mind that you're better than that and decide that you're going to come out of that. And that's what I did. I said, I know this is not what God would have me to be in. And so I left that situation, ended up being divorced. And some ministers told me, hey, a divorced preacher would never be able to preach and lead in the church.
Will you come back and talk about that?
I sure will.
Because many of us feel that once we've had a break in our lives, that's the end of our lives.
No.
And what you've shown us is that's not true. Sometimes it's really the beginning.
It is.
God breaks you to remake you. Well, that's about it for us on the Santita Jackson Show. I want you to call the number that you see on your screen right now and let us know what you think. Let us know what you want us to talk about. Join me on my Facebook page, on the Santita Jackson fan page. Look, I had so many friends, I had to get a fan page, but I want you to join me. I want to hear from you because this is your show. Be encouraged, everybody, and dare I say, keep hope alive. I'm Santita Jackson. God bless you, everybody.
If you have a question, an idea for a show topic, or just want to leave a comment, log on to Facebook and visit the Santita Jackson fan page. And don't forget to follow her on Twitter at SantitaJ. Thanks for watching this edition of the Santita Jackson Show.